Welcome back to Boilers and Beyond. I'm your host, Jordan Jones, here today for the first ever Boilers and Beyond NCAA Tournament Preview episode. It's March 15th. We're halfway through the best month of the year, but we're just beginning the best week of the year. We have a bracket. Selection Sunday was last night for the sixth straight tournament. Matt Painter's Boilermakers heard their name called during the selection show. Now, teams are flocking towards Indianapolis and preparing for the controlled environment of this season's NCAA tournament. You know, I wish I could explain how excited I am for Friday and Saturday. You know, the 2 days of the round of 64 are the best 2 days of the whole year. It's going to be special. All of this is coming after a great weekend for the Big Ten over at Lucas Oil Stadium. I was fortunate enough to be there on Friday and Saturday. Since Purdue did have a game last week, I will be breaking it down as always, even though it's not exactly the most time-sensitive thing now that the Big Ten tournament is over and it's NCAA tournament time. We'll still talk about the Buckeyes, and then we will go into previewing Purdue's first-round matchup. We'll talk about the Big Ten in the Big Dance, and we'll close out with some thoughts on the coaching carousel in college basketball right now. It was incredible to be in attendance at Lucas Oil Stadium on Friday and Saturday. Purdue fans on Friday afternoon came out in droves, really got Lucas Oil going. It was awesome to be around so many Purdue people and have that feeling, you know, when Purdue gets going and the crowd gets into it. It's truly special. It's something you don't realize how much you miss it until you go a year without it. Some major credit, though, has to go to the city of Indianapolis for getting it put together. There's no better city to host an event like this in America. You know, Indianapolis is unique. Everything is right there downtown. You have so many good restaurants. You have so many places for people to go hang out before, in between, and after games. Indianapolis is a great city for that, and they showed why this weekend with the way everything went at Lucas Oil, and I think things are going to be awesome for the NCAA tournament, especially with Lucas Oil having 2 courts and Bankers Life having a court. You know, that's 3 floors right downtown there. It's going to be pretty cool stuff. You know, Purdue gets going in this game, though, and Ohio State really exposed some of Purdue's defensive weaknesses in the first half. We've seen this a lot this year where Purdue tends to overhelp when opposing guards drive to the basket. And Ohio State was fantastic at getting the ball into the lane and kicking it out to an open shooter. You know, they have their 5-out style at times because they do have 5 shooters on the floor a lot of the time when Zed Key's not in the game. Kyle Young was out of his mind in the first half. He went 4 for 4 from 3, had 18 points, joined by Dwayne Washington with 13 points in the first half himself. You'll remember Washington nearly single-handedly won Ohio State that game against Purdue over in Columbus back in January when Jaden Ivey hit the game-winning 3. It was all Buckeyes early on in the half. Purdue trailed by 18. It didn't look like there was much reason for hope. One of my buddies who I was at the game with asked if I thought we had a chance. I said no. Little do I know. You know, Purdue comes out of the second half swinging right away. They didn't back down from Ohio State at all. Purdue would cut it to a 10-point game by the under 16 timeout. Good little 8-point swing there in 4 minutes. It was down to a 6-point game by the under 8. And early on in that second half, what really gave Purdue life was Jaden Ivey knocking down 3 deep balls in a 90-second period. That gave Purdue so much life. This was Ivey's most impressive shooting performance from the outside of the season. 4 of 8 from 3 in this game. Really good game for Ivey. There were certainly a couple of threes where maybe they were a little bit too far out or a little too quick, but you know, he was really good. and it's good to see him knock down threes like that. If he can start doing that consistently, Jaden Ivey will be a pro next year, or I guess after next year, if he can knock down threes like that. And then the final 4 minutes of this game, it was a Trevion Williams takeover. He was excellent in this game, absolutely excellent. 26 points, 14 rebounds, 5 assists to go along with that. And he hit some really difficult shots late in the game to force overtime. But credit to Purdue on the defensive end. Purdue gives up 49 points in the first half and then holds Ohio State to just 23 in the second period. That's really, really good. It's a shame that Purdue wasn't able to come out and have a better effort on defense early on. It is noteworthy Ohio State forward Kyle Young was forced to miss the rest of the tournament after a head injury he sustained in the second half of this game. Hope he's back for the NCAA tournament. He was red hot in the first half, as I said, and you want everyone to be at their best going into March. You hope Kyle Young's okay and that he can get Ohio State back to their best here as they prepare for their game this weekend. Once the game got to overtime, though, all the momentum was with Purdue, and then the ball tipped off in overtime, and Ohio State really just hit big shot after big shot to pull away. Seth Towns was freed up for an early three. A monster screen by E.J. Liddell got him open. Not sure how legal it was. Sasha Stefanovic would tell you it's very illegal. That happens. Purdue's down 4 with 1:16 to play. Washington nails a tough three from the top of the key. Purdue fought like hell in this game. They tried to come back. It wasn't enough. They got this thing to overtime, but your final score, Ohio State 87, Purdue 78 in overtime. A few thoughts here before we put a wrap on the Big Ten tournament. And it's amazing how fast the season has gone that we're already to the NCAA tournament. Big Ten play is over, but here we are. In this game, Trevion Williams was the story. It had been a slow end to the regular season for Williams, single-digit points in 3 of the last 4 games. That's something he didn't do often before that. He was a monster. Ohio State couldn't keep up with him on defense. Kyle Young goes out, and then your options are Zed Key, a freshman who is very talented. Zed Key is going to be a really good player for Ohio State, but a junior big man versus a freshman big man in the Big Ten is certainly it's not what you want if you're the Buckeyes. And then E.J. Liddell, who is a fantastic player, but at 6'7", probably could use another inch or two to try to guard Williams. It was good to see Williams take this game over late. He was dominating the glass all day. He didn't score well in the first half, just 2 of 7 from the field in the first half. 5 assists as well, as I said. An incredibly productive day for Williams, and it's good to see him get back onto that level of play before we go into the NCAA tournament here, because you need him at your best if you're going to make a run. Zach Edey, coming off the bench for Williams, too, had a nice day. He had 11 points. There was a moment where the ball got stuck on top of the basket. Zach Edey grabs the mop and goes and gets the ball unstuck. The crowd goes crazy. Awesome stuff there that you don't see when you're not at the game, really. But and it was interesting to see a couple times in this game, Matt Painter put Williams and Edey out there together. I do believe Purdue scored on both the offensive possessions it had with those two together. Purdue got lucky when it went to the defensive end with that matchup. I believe the ball was tipped out of bounds, so Purdue was able to get that substitution in. It'll be interesting to see if Purdue goes with that lineup, should it need a 2-point basket here in the NCAA tournament. I don't know. I don't know what to expect. We had not seen that all year long. But, sometimes you just got to see if something works. And credit Matt Painter for trusting those two to go out there and do something. Free throws can win and lose a lot of games, especially this time of year in March. Purdue was 15 of 27 from the free throw line, just 4 of 13 in the second half, and that stuck out like a sore thumb. You can't have that happen. I know the environment in Lucas Oil Stadium, it's certainly one that isn't conducive to shooting well. The backdrop is very different. It's a football stadium. It's not a standard basketball arena. It's very different. And this week, we saw a lot of shooting struggles for teams who were in their first time playing there, teams in their first game. It's noteworthy. It's noteworthy to point out that is a potential excuse, but it's important for Purdue to make sure it's just a one-game thing. And additionally, now that we look at it a little bit after I was even planning some of this out, we know Purdue's going back to Lucas Oil Stadium for their first round game of the NCAA tournament. So Purdue's really got to make sure they're able to get their free throws made and not have that 60% number come back out and be a major threat to them moving on. Williams was great, but besides him, it wasn't a good day for the upperclassmen. 4 points on 1 of 5 shooting for Eric Hunter Jr., Sasha Stefanovic scoreless on 0 of 4 from the field. Aaron Wheeler did knock down an early 3 from the corner, but he finished the game as a minus 23 in the plus-minus. That's a really tough number. You don't want to see that at all. Look, experience wins this time of year, and we see it every single year. It helps to have older players. Purdue's going to need more production from those 3 guys if they're going to win in March. You can be productive without scoring, and you see this all the time with some of these players. Hunter's a fantastic defender. Sasha Stefanovic is Purdue's best assist guy. Aaron Wheeler can make some really good hustle plays. He's made some chase down blocks. He's able to get some rebounds. He can play some defense. These guys can be productive without scoring, but you want to see Stefanovic knocking down threes. You want to see Hunter finding his buckets in multiple levels the way he's so good at. These guys will be fine. They're old, they're experienced, they had a tough day, but it wasn't a banner day for them at all when Purdue took on Ohio State, and you just want to get that fixed as you go in to the big dance. And it is worth pointing out, Ohio State's really good. We saw that all weekend long. The Buckeyes took Illinois to overtime in the Big Ten championship game. Dwayne Washington Jr., absolute stud. In hindsight, he probably should have been better than third team all-conference, probably deserved to be on that second team. E.J. Liddell, first team all-conference. He's an absolute force at the 4 spot. Justice Suing, really, really solid. This team's a major threat coming up in the NCAA tournament. Nothing's going to be easy against them. You always kind of knew, and you can be naive and disagree, but you always knew it was going to be nearly impossible for Purdue to beat Ohio State 3 times. The Boilers came very close, but it wasn't enough. They weren't able to get that done. And now they go into the NCAA tournament. They had won 5 games in a row before this, but like most teams, they come in off a loss. Sometimes that's not the worst thing. There's always the theory out there. You don't want to win your conference tournament. You want to make sure you've been humbled a little bit before you get into the bracket. Purdue found out on Selection Sunday they're a number 4 seed in the South region, and they'll be playing North Texas in the first round Friday, a 7:25 p.m. tip on TNT. The Lucas Oil Stadium North Court will be hosting this game, and if I have my directions right, that is the court that they did not play on for the Big Ten tournament. This one's on the other side of the curtain. There was a March Madness floor down the whole weekend getting ready for the event. So that's where Purdue is. I think it's a really good draw for Purdue. If you look at that first weekend 4-team bracket. You have Purdue, North Texas, and you have Villanova versus Winthrop, with the two winners meeting. Villanova is missing their most important player, Colin Gillespie, co-Big East Player of the Year, due to a torn MCL in his knee. You know, that's a brutal injury for a kid who's a really good player. He deserves a lot better than that. And then another quality starter for them, Justin Moore. He missed the Big East tournament, severe ankle sprain, according to Coach Jay Wright. You know, that's worth noting. You would think he'll be all right to play in the big dance, but you never know. Jay Wright's dangerous. We all know Jay Wright is a fantastic coach. He has a full week to prepare for Winthrop, but you've already heard it. It's a popular upset pick. Winthrop coming in at 23-1, champions of the Big South Conference down in South Carolina for Winthrop. They've got a good program going. It is maybe the most trendy 12/5 upset pick, that along with UC Santa Barbara over Creighton. Regardless, you know, Winthrop's good, Villanova's good, North Texas is good. You don't play a lot of bad teams during this tournament. Purdue's going to have to take care of business, but I think they got a pretty good shake in this one. Now, to preview North Texas a bit, you're probably going to ask the question, Jordan, what the hell do you know about North Texas? To be honest with you, not much. I've watched some highlights. I've taken a look at some of the stats and the advanced metrics. I can't say I know tons about them. 17-9 on the year, 9-5 in Conference USA play. That's third in the West Division. They did go on a run to win 4 straight games in the Conference USA tournament. They took down the favorite, Western Kentucky, to win it and get their ticket punched to the NCAA tournament. They've played some solid competition this year. Non-conference-wise, they lost by 15 to Arkansas, 6 to Mississippi State, 12 to West Virginia, and 8 to Loyola Chicago. The Mean Green, 71st in KenPom, 59th in the net. And for some reference, they're right next to Northwestern in the KenPom standings. And in the net, the Mean Green are 4 spots higher than the Indiana Hoosiers. Their metrics aren't perfect. Take them for what they're worth, but that's probably a pretty good comparison in terms of Northwestern and IU as to what Purdue will be looking at in the first round. Just a different team than those two. A win over Purdue for the Mean Green would be their first Quad 1 win of the year, but they do have 3 Quad 2 victories. Their leading scorer coming in, 6'4", senior guard Javion Hamlet, 43% from the field, 36% from deep. Though it is worth noting, he shot a little better last year, broke 40% from 3, but he doesn't take a ton of them. He gets to the foul line better than anyone else on their team. He's taken double the amount of free throws as the next closest player. He has been really good all year for them. 15 points, 3 boards, 4.5 assists. You already know Eric Hunter Jr. will be taking on Javion Hamlet in the half court. Hamlet's led the Mean Green in scoring for 7 games in a row. Purdue's going to look to change that. And in reality, the second leading scorer who Purdue will maybe want to get the ball to, 6'4" senior, another one of them, James Reese. Incredibly similar statistics to what Hamlet has. 42% from the field, 35% from 3. But for what it's worth, Reese is only shooting 29% from 3 outside of their home arena. But Reese has taken 152 threes on the season. That's by far the most on their team. For comparison, that's 30 more threes than Sasha Stefanovic has taken on the year, who naturally leads Purdue in three-point attempts. Reese averages 10.8 points a game. And when you have 2 senior guards leading the way, especially if they're dangerous from 3 like Hamlet and Reese have shown to be, boy, that's not a team you're real excited to face in the first round. That can give you some fits because they're experienced, they know what to do with the ball, and they are not ready to be done. Inside, 6'10", 239-pound senior forward Zachary Simmons will get his chance to guard Travion Williams and Zach Edey. Simmons is a high percentage shooter on the offensive end. He's been over 60% in each of his 4 seasons as a Mean Green. 10 points a game. He is turnover prone to a certain degree. Purdue will look to put some pressure on him down in the post. Look, Simmons is experienced. 20-plus minutes a game in every season he's been at North Texas. Pulls down 6 rebounds a game, but he hasn't gone up against a rebounder like Travion Williams yet. This matchup at the 5 is one that Purdue has to win convincingly to win this game. Travion Williams has to outplay Zachary Simmons. You'd love Zach Edey to outplay him as well, because if Purdue doesn't win the battle inside, they're not going to win this game. They got another senior out there, Thomas Bell, 6'6", 190-pound forward. He starts at the 4 spot. 10 points a game, 39% three-point shooter. These 4 guys all score 10 or more a game. They all shoot pretty well from the field. You do get a junior there in the starting lineup with 6'2" junior guard Mardez McBride, 7 points a game, almost shoots 40% from 3. He's taken over 100 threes on the year. For comparison, he's taken 2 more threes than Brandon Newman has. Interesting there, this is an experienced group. Though after Zachary Simmons, their center, they're pretty thin on size, which you normally see that in these games. These smaller schools struggle to recruit size. But they do have Terrence Lewis II, a 6'7" forward, and then you have 6'10", 250-pound freshman Ibo Osmane. I don't know how to pronounce it exactly, but he doesn't see a ton of minutes. He may be needed to help handle Williams and Edey on Friday. That's a lot of it's a big challenge for a big guy like Simmons, who's not completely used to going up against an all Big Ten caliber center. Usman really doesn't play much. He averages 8 minutes a game in the games he plays, but this will be interesting. He didn't see much time in the Conference USA tournament. As a whole, though, this North Texas team scares me a little bit with their shooting ability, given what we saw Purdue do in the first half of the game against Ohio State. Purdue cannot overhelp in the lane. Purdue cannot leave three-point shooters open. North Texas as a team shoots nearly 38% from 3. You have to limit them there. You can't let them shoot 38%. If you can limit them there, you should be in good shape. Interesting to note, Matt Painter does have experience with North Texas coach. Their coach was in the junior college ranks for Nemanja Calisan when Purdue recruited him. That was probably more than 15 years ago now, but that's the only connection Purdue really has with this program is through Nemanja Calisan. I am sure you didn't tune into this episode expecting to hear me talk about Nemanja Calisan, even if you know who he is, which is probably a pretty small group of listeners. This is a defensive-minded Mean Green team. Purdue will need to spread out the floor. You want Travion Williams and Zach Edey to get one-on-one chances if North Texas will give them to you. And if not, you have to knock down the open threes that come to you. You don't want to force them. You want to let them come to you. And really, North Texas should have to make a decision every time down on defense, either double the post or stay true to all the guards. We'll see if they're able to do that effectively. The experience that North Texas is going to run out on the court with on Friday it's noteworthy and it's concerning. Experience wins in March. We've said this over and over again. North Texas isn't going to back down even if Purdue gets ahead early on. The ball is going to be in the hands of a lot of experienced players for North Texas. Purdue will have to take care of the ball. You're going to have to make North Texas outplay you by enough to overcome that talent gap. North Texas can outplay Purdue and Purdue can still win. Purdue's the more talented team. But if North Texas outplays Purdue by enough to overcome that talent gap, that's when you hit the panic button and you hope like hell that something doesn't happen that ends your season there. You know, these are never fun games for the higher seeded team. You're expected to win if you're Purdue. No one outside of the Purdue fan base will ever remember this game if Purdue wins. I guess the North Texas fan base will remember it as well. But if you lose, everyone's always going to remember that one time that North Texas beat Purdue. I'm going to go with Purdue to win it. I do believe in this Boilermaker team, but it won't be an easy win. Purdue's going to have to scratch and claw for everything they get in this game. Now, to break down a little bit of the Big Ten in the Big Dance, 9 Big Ten teams in the NCAA tournament. That's the most of any conference. The Big 12 is next. The Big 12 has 7 teams in there. Well, I think the Big 12 teams are a little bit higher up in the seeds. Big Ten goes a little bit deeper down into the seed lines. But to go through it, number 1 seeds, Illinois and Michigan. Those are the number 3 and 4 overall seeds behind Gonzaga and Baylor. On the 2 line, you have Ohio State and Iowa. Purdue, obviously a 4 seed. Wisconsin, the preseason top 10 Badgers, a 9 seed in the NCAA tournament this year. And then our friends out east, Rutgers and Maryland, both on the 10 line. And Tom Izzo found a way to continue his streak when it looked like there was no chance. He's an 11 seed. They're playing in the first 4. I'm going to go through real quick just the first round matchup for every Big Ten team. Obviously, for some of them, they mean a lot more than they do for others. We'll go through them. I'll give you some thoughts on each Big Ten team, and then we'll keep going here. But, you know, Illinois, the Big Ten's highest seeded team, they're taking on Drexel in a 1-16 game. The Illini are maybe the hottest team in the country right now with 7 straight wins, 14 of their last 15. The question is, can they make it a 13-game win streak and cut down the nets? I don't think they will, but they have the talent to do so. Iota Sunmu, Kofi Coburn, Andre Curbelo, Trent Frazier, Georgi Bashanishvili. That's a really good Illinois team. They haven't been to the NCAA tournament since 2013. They haven't made it to the second weekend since 2005 when they made it to the national championship game before falling to Roy Williams in North Carolina. Michigan gets the winner of a 16-seed play-in game. That play-in game takes place at Assembly Hall. With Isaiah Livers likely done for the season, what's Michigan going to look like? Livers, a starting forward on that team, very good player, might be done for the year with some stress issues in his foot. They struggled in the Big Ten tournament, lost to Ohio State. I know it looked, Michigan had a chance to win it on the last possession, but they didn't play all that well. A potential second-round matchup there with LSU is really interesting. The Wolverines aren't getting a ton of love right now. They're not all that hot. We'll see what happens there. Ohio State coming off a great weekend, getting all the way to the final game and forcing overtime in that, even after they were down 17 early on. They come in for Oral Roberts. I think Ohio State can make a really good run here. Hypothetically, if it's all chalk, Ohio State gets Baylor and the Elite Eight. That would be an interesting game. Excited to watch the Buckeyes. They're playing really good basketball right now, even though they came into the Big Ten tournament on a 4-game losing streak. Iowa, the Hawkeyes get Grand Canyon. What a matchup for me. I enjoy watching this Hawkeye team, and naturally I have to like Bryce Drew out at Grand Canyon, a part of the Valpo family. Iowa should win this one easily. I'm not excited for the actual game itself as much as I am just to have Bryce Drew and Scott Drew both in the NCAA tournament this year. Iowa's going to be interesting to follow in the tournament because They can score an awful lot of points, but they just don't like playing defense. That's definitely something that could be a huge issue. Personally, I think they can get to the Elite Eight, and I don't think they can get past Gonzaga. We saw Gonzaga really play well against Iowa earlier this year. I think that'll happen again. Wisconsin, preseason top 10 team. I've said it before. I'll say it again. The most disappointing team in the Big Ten this year. I think their season is going to come to an end with a loss to UNC in the tournament. Tar Heels are looking really good lately. They're peaking at the right time. They're young, but Roy Williams has some serious talent there. Meanwhile, Wisconsin doesn't look good. Almost found a way to lose their first round game to Penn State in the Big Ten tournament. I don't think Big Ten country will be too upset about this. Gauging off Twitter, I don't think Wisconsin has earned a bunch of fans throughout the conference. It's not been a fun season for the Badgers, and we'll see if they can at least get it another day so they can get to play Baylor in the second round. Rutgers. The Scarlet Knights are back in the NCAA tournament for the first time in what seems like forever. These are two teams who beat Purdue early on in the season. Both beat Purdue before the calendar turned to 2021. This should be a pretty good game. It might be rather ugly. I don't know that either of these teams have been playing great basketball lately. I think they both built the majority of their resume before before the end of the season. They didn't have to do much late to get in, rather hold on. Steve Peichel would love to get this win. I'd love to see Steve Peichel get this win for Rutgers. It's been a while for them, and you'd love to see them do something here and at least get to a second round game. Meanwhile, on the other part of the East Coast, for the DC market, Maryland taking on UConn in an East Coast matchup. Maryland has more losses than anyone in the Big Dance, but boy, do they have some good wins. UConn's interesting. James Bouknight, a fantastic guard in the backcourt. He's battled injury problems all year. Will he be healthy? Turgeon takes a lot of heat from the Maryland fan base, but he gets in the tournament quite a bit. He's back there this year, and we'll see what the Terps can do. And then finally, the last Big Ten game, Michigan State versus UCLA. Isn't it interesting that that's a first four game at Mackey Arena? Two historic programs with a lot of success. Disappointing years this year as they're meeting in a play-in game. The winner of this gets BYU and Matt Harms in the round of 64. Personally, I think Michigan State's going to win against UCLA and win against BYU, but crazier things have happened, and I will be altering my bracket should UCLA come out on top in Mackey Arena on Thursday night. To get into some of my picks here, and I'm not going to go through my entire bracket. You guys don't want to listen to that, but I do have Purdue getting to the Sweet 16 before losing to Baylor. I think Purdue's going to play true to their seed, which in reality Purdue tends to do, even under Gene Cady quite a bit. Purdue tends to play to their seed and then bow out. Baylor would be an interesting matchup. It would be difficult. I think Purdue could have some success on the inside. Purdue would have to be really good with the ball to beat Baylor, though. They're very active on defense. Mark Vidal's a good post player for them. I don't think he'd be enough to stop Travion Williams and Zach Edey. But if Baylor doubled, it'd be one of the more aggressive doubling teams Purdue's seen all year. And Purdue would really have to be careful with the ball. I don't know that I can pick the upset right now. The Big Ten hasn't won a national title since Michigan State. Mateen Cleaves and the Flintstones won it back in 2000. I don't see that changing this year. If you got to bet on it and you want to take a Big Ten team, Illinois and Ohio State would be your two best bets. I don't think either's going to get it done, but those are the two that I think could. My final four: Gonzaga, Baylor, West Virginia, and Texas. I think Ohio State could beat Baylor. I really do. I can't predict it. I'm too impressed with Baylor and what I've seen, but Ohio State's hot right now. The East is a really tough region to pick. Michigan, Florida State, Texas, Alabama. I think those teams are all fairly similar, especially if Michigan doesn't have Isaiah Livers. I'll go with Texas and their veteran guards. Shaka Smart, got a good group there. Greg Brown, a high-level NBA talent. Jericho Sims, a good big guy down low. But that region's kind of a crapshoot. And then overall, in the Final Four, I can't pick against Gonzaga. I will take them to be the first undefeated national champion since 1976. And then Indiana's little number one all-time March Madness team for the 76 team. That banner is going to be looking a little weird there if Gonzaga does that. Always interesting down at Assembly Hall. And to transition into that, some coaching news first. This morning, the first bit of news, Micah Shrewsbury has been hired by Penn State to be their next head coach and replace Jim Ferry, who coached under the interim tag this year after the firing of Pat Chambers back in August. Thrilled for Shrews here. This is awesome. It's not easy to get a Power 6 job as your first head coaching job by any means. It's not an easy position. Penn State is in the middle of Pennsylvania in a weird location. You're not all that close to Pittsburgh or Philadelphia. Pat Chambers did a nice job of recruiting the Philadelphia area. That's something Shrews will have to continue to do, but expectations aren't high. It's a football school. They've never been great at basketball. Their expectations aren't high. Opportunity is abundant. You're in the best conference in college basketball. You can beat a lot of good teams, and it's a great stage to be on. If you can put together some decent teams at Penn State, it's an easy springboard. It'll be a lot of fun to follow in this conference. Cool to see Matt Painter have one of his disciples in the league. I'll be curious to see how Shrewsbury fills out his staff, whether he takes some Purdue guys or not. Purdue will have to replace Shrews as the associate head coach, and by all, in all reality, the offensive coordinator of the team. I don't know where they'll go with that. It's going to be someone with a lot of experience. You see on Twitter, DJ Birds at Mercer, PJ Thompson and Grady Eifert are at Purdue still. It's not going to be one of those guys. They're not going to go into a assistant coach spot of a high level program right now. It's not going to be one of them. It'll be an experienced guy, but I don't have a good grip on who. That news came out this morning about 9, and then at noon, we got the big bomb from down in southern Indiana. Archie Miller gone after 4 years in Bloomington. He's done. Indiana spending over $10 million to fire him, though in Scott Dolson's press release, it was noted that the funds were privately donated to secure his buyout. 0-7 versus Purdue was Archie Miller during his time in Bloomington. And if you look for a major reason why Archie Miller is no longer coaching there, that's a big one. Who's next? Brad Stevens is probably their dream candidate. I don't understand why he would leave the NBA, but if you ask an Indiana fan, they're going to tell you Brad Stevens. Some other names that I hear, unrealistically in my opinion, Nate Oates, Tony Bennett. Chris Beard, I guess, is maybe realistic. I don't know that I see it. Josh Pastner from Georgia Tech is a name I hear some. Obviously, down in Indianapolis, Dan Dockich will always be pushing for Steve Alford. I think Purdue fans should be very happy if IU were to go with Alford. His track record's not that great. He had some serious issues at Iowa, handling player conduct. He couldn't win without Lonzo Ball at UCLA. Couldn't really do much. And now he's at Nevada just kind of hanging around. Dane Fife, the Michigan State associate head coach who played for the Hoosiers, maybe the most likely candidate, but I don't know that I would see IU paying this buyout to go hire a guy who's never been, well, I guess he has been a head coach, but it's been a while since he's been a head coach. If they're going to, are they going to hire a coach that satisfies the IU fan base? I'm going to guess no, but crazier things have happened. You never know with that school down south. And then out northwest, Minnesota makes it official. They fire Richard Pitino. 141 and 123 at Minnesota, but he only won 36% of his Big Ten games. Only made the NCAA tournament twice in his 8 seasons in Minneapolis. I always felt he had more talent than his results showed, especially you look at 2019, 2020. They have Marcus Carr, Daniel Oturu. They still finish below 500. This move doesn't surprise me. Minnesota's not an easy job, but I think it's getting better. It's becoming a better state with high school talent. They've had some really good players in there under Pitino, but the next coach is going to have to come in there. He's going to have to make the big dance more than 25% of the time. That's going to be critical. I don't really know who the targets would be there. I think guys like Porter Mosier would be interesting. The coach at Drake would be interesting. But I don't know that I have great answers. I'm not as connected with Minnesota fans and knowing what they think. So Pitino came after just 1 season at Florida International. It's certainly not a fantastic job, but look, if you're a head coach and you take that job, you're going to get paid a lot of money. And if it doesn't work out, you're going to get paid a lot of money to go away. That's all I have for you today. Thank you for trusting me to get you ready for the NCAA tournament. Time is precious when filling out brackets. I greatly appreciate you all giving me some of that time. Be sure to follow the show on Twitter @BoilersBeyond for tons of news, notes, and in-game analysis. I'll be tweeting from there all tournament long. I'd love to interact with you all. Best of luck with all your brackets. I'll be back next Tuesday to react to the first weekend of the NCAA tournament. Hopefully the Boilers will still be dancing. Until then, enjoy the madness because you all deserve it. It's finally back. This is March.